Hey everybody, thanks for watching the Arkansas Gun Guy. Today, a close-up look at Beretta's 92 versus its rival, the SIG P226. These are probably the two most compared guns on the internet. If you do a YouTube search on these two comparisons, you'll probably find hundreds of videos, so I'm honored that you took a moment just to watch my quick comparison. Quick story for me, this is one of my first guns I ever bought, one of the guns I've owned the longest, the gun I've probably shot the most, and have a very special relationship with this firearm. And I've always heard about the competition between this one and the Beretta 92, but I had never shot one. I have a friend of the channel who didn't own one and knew that I was looking for this kind of comparison and let me borrow the firearm. So this guy has thousands of rounds to it over the years. This guy this week has 50 rounds to it. So I'll talk briefly about my shooting comparison between the two because honestly, I really like the Beretta. It shot real nice. So that's just, why I have the two guns. I'm sure if you're watching this, you already know the history, but if in case you want the Twitterfied Cliff Notes version of why these two guns are important, these are the two finalists for the XM9 service pistol trials in the 80s, I think the mid-80s. And several guns were submitted by several companies, several great guns. They went through rigorous testing, but these two, at the end of the day, were the most reliable and most accurate firearms. And it came down to, again, testing-wise, these guys were heads and shoulders above the competition. And these two guys were pretty much neck and neck in most categories. Maybe the SIG was more durable, maybe the Beretta was slightly more accurate, but they were both phenomenal firearms. And I do believe it came down to cost at the end of the day, and the Beretta actually won the Army or the military contract. And has since sold bajillions of guns because of that contract, both to the Army and to the civilian market because of that heritage of being a military firearm. And that is fantastic. But at the same time that the Army or the U.S. military adopted the Beretta, the Navy SEALs says, we don't like the Beretta. And I think they may have had issues with some cracked slides early on, which is not an issue now. They didn't like the Beretta. They wanted the SIG 226. And that instantly made the 226 a legend. This 226 is the Mark 25 version, which designates the SEAL gun. And the only thing it really has is this anchor on here and some corrosion resistance treatment inside the firearm. So a standard Beretta 92 FS here and the SIG 226 Mark 25 is what we have. So both are fantastic firearms. Boring specs, in case you haven't already seen these. The Beretta, I'm surprised, is actually longer than the SIG. I'd always heard they were pretty much identical. Didn't realize how long the Beretta was. Now, I must also say that this firearm that my friend let me borrow has the silencer code threaded barrel. He didn't have a threaded barrel from Beretta. You saw me put my finger in front of the gun. These guys have been checked. There's no magazines, and they are clear. So, do the SIG while I'm here. Don't want anyone to yell at me on the internet again. No magazines. And firearms are clear. And since I just did that, let's look at the decockers because that seems to be the thing that most people talk about the most. The SIG has this very iconic decocker here that you just sweep up with your thumb and drop it down like that. Where the Beretta has this, and it gets mounted on the frame. The Beretta, however, has a different decocking system. And it's actually ambi, where the SIG is only for right-handers, but it's a slide-mounted safety. And again, the firearm is cocked. Once you decock it, you pull down, and the gun is now decocked. But you'll see that the lever stayed down. The gun is also now in safe mode. So pull the trigger, nothing happens. Fascinated, the trigger bar is on the outside of the firearm too, by the way. So for battery of arms, you then need to take your thumb and sweep up to then place the gun into double action. So one big difference between the two that many people talk about. In the SIG, I prefer the way it looks and the way it functions, but it's also just for right-handers. I'm a left-hander, so I also appreciate the ambi-friendliness of this slide-mounted safety. And I've gotten used to this battery of arms on the Beretta Storm, a firearm I'm shooting a ton now. So I don't have a problem with this at all. But I have read that people were concerned that if they were to rack the firearm, they could potentially, put the firearm in safe mode or decock the mode and not be ready to go bang when the time came. I think it's also worth noting that Beretta is an older gun. This guy was designed in 1975 and production started in 1976. Where the SIG was actually an evolution. It was an evolution of the 220 series. If you see a 220, they look just like this. They've got the takedown lever here, same notch, same slide stop, slide catch back here, and this decocker. But that's a single stack firearm. The military contract required up to 13 at least 13 rounds of ammunition, and these both hold 15 rounds of 9mm. And so SIG developed the 226 from 1980 to 1983 for the trials that began in 1984. So just a brief history of the two. Design details, the other thing that I noticed is the slide stop, slide catch positioning. You have the decocker in front of it, and this thing is pretty far back for slide stop, slide catch. On the Beretta, it's the opposite. Your safety and decocker is behind here, and the slide stop, slide catch is up a little further. So slightly different positioning there. The other very iconic thing about this Beretta, and this is, by the way, one of the most iconic guns in the history because of Die Hard and Lethal Weapon, and pretty much every other LA cop movie in the 80s, that the Beretta 92 was the firearm that was always shown. But I'm also fascinated by this almost fixed barrel design with a top ejection. Let me lock this back. Amazing to me that the firearm of the ejection shoots straight out the top there, but also this is not necessarily a tilting barrel. It looks like a fixed barrel, but it does have some movement in there, and I'll take the barrel out and look at it in a second. So I was blown away by the design of the barrel, which to me seems like it's maybe overly complicated. I would think the SIG could be a little more reliable. Let me lock this guy back. The SIG has the standard Browning tilting design there, so the barrel does tilt down, and the ejection more comes out the side instead of the top there. So different ejection pattern, different action inside there with the Browning tilting design versus this. Is this really a fixed barrel? What do you guys think? Let me know if that's a fixed barrel or not, because it does have kind of a cam thing on the bottom. It moves ever so slightly. But my first time to the range with this guy, I've only put 15 rounds through it. I shot it just as well as this guy that I've shot thousands of rounds through. Now that could be the trigger, which we'll look at in a second, but it could be just a longer sight radius. Both firearms do have kind of a standard 3-dot sight radius. Very easy to pick up, very easy to shoot. But this Beretta is quite a bit longer, has just a little bit longer sight radius. So maybe that made this gun really easy to shoot right out of the gate. They both feel good in your hands. A little bit more of a beaver tail here on the Beretta than on the SIG. Neither one has an issue of slide bite though. Plastic type grips on both right now. Harder plastic, more of a G10 type feel. There's definitely multiple options and grips for both firearms, whether it's wood or different, just any design you want to really. I should also note that both these firearms have spawned so many iterations of the same thing. The Beretta has smaller versions. They have 3 different sizes, all different levels, competition triggers. They may even have single action triggers on some. There's more than I could ever count, more variations of the Beretta. Same with SIG. It has smaller options that are the SIG 228 or 229, and they have Legion versions and all types of different specialty type versions. I know there's single action only versions here too. So both guns have spawned an entire generation of aluminum frame, steel slide, metal, double action, single action, hammer fired firearms. So 2 really important guns in history. The only thing I really want to do is just take a look at the inside of the Beretta and compare it to the SIG. Both firearms are really super easy to take down. Before I do that, I should look at the trigger. Sorry. So I did the safety check already. But the double action trigger on the SIG is a long, heavy pull. It's smooth and what you expect from a military firearm. The single action, a little bit of take up. You get the wall, it breaks. Now the reset, I care about more reset probably more than I should. Let's say longer reset, audible click, a little bit of take up, and the wall. So good trigger, nothing special. They make better for SIGs with their SRT system. Now with the Beretta, again, big double action pull, feels about the same. Again, fascinated by this external trigger bar here. But the single action, again, a little bit of take up, not as much as the SIG though. A little bit of take up and you're instantly at the wall and it breaks. Now the reset here feels a little bit shorter on take up 2 and you're back at the wall. So I think this slightly shorter reset, slightly better trigger, and slightly longer sight radius makes this guy maybe a little easier to shoot. Again, I only have 50 rounds through it. I have thousands here. By the way, never not fired. So how about you guys? What's your experience? Do you have one or the other or both? Do you prefer one or the other? What are your thoughts on the 92X or the 92 versus the 226? The last thing I really want to see was just a barrel inside there. So if I lock the SIG back, if I take this takedown lever down, let it go, you'll see standard Browning tilting barrel design in here. There's your barrel. Looks like pretty much all the other barrels. And this is what probably 5,000 rounds plus looks like inside here. So very standard traditional barrel. The Beretta, on the other hand, and this, make sure I can take this guy down, it's pretty simple. First, take off this cap. I believe I have two. Lock this back. I'll do it off camera in case I make a mistake. Push that button there. Yep, super easy to take down. I got it, I think. Slides right off. Okay, got it. Can look inside to compare the internals, I suppose. So, quick look at the SIG here and the Beretta here. What was fascinating to me was the barrel on the Beretta. You've got a captured plastic guide rod there. But this barrel, it's got this weird camming system on here. So I need to study out how this guy works. But you can see it does move like this. So the barrel, I guess, is not a fixed barrel, but definitely has a different design than the standard Browning tilting barrel. So again, for those of you who have used both firearms, especially Beretta, love to hear your feedback. Do you love it? Do you hate it? Has it never let you down? Would love to hear what your thoughts are. I won't put these back together on camera because you guys will probably laugh at me. Thank you guys for watching the Arkansas Gun Guy. If you haven't yet, please like and subscribe. It helps me grow my channel. And again, I do appreciate y'all watching.